Good morning, traders. It's Carlo from Blueberry with market analysis and the week ahead. So what I've been watching over the last few days has been the softer US dollar, which has caused gold prices to push higher and other currencies in particular. Let's take a look at the gold price. You can see here it bounced aggressively out of that support zone a few weeks ago, just below 4,040. And we are currently trading at 4,610 this morning. Pretty strong uptrend. You can see the 20-day EMA crossed over and crossed above the 50-day EMA about a week and a half ago. Bullish signal with stochastics above the 80 level. Also, look at the currency markets here on the right-hand side of my screen. The Aussie versus US dollar. Again, I've mentioned US dollar weakness, the Aussie trading around 71.70, the highest it's been for a few months. Dollar yen, the most volatile currency pair, down around 158.95. Of course, it's been high around the 164s. Where is the Bank of Japan? Where are its friends? Where is the Fed Reserve and the ECB? Will they be intervening this week to help push the dollar yen lower? That remains to be seen. And of course, the euro dollar is currently trading near recent highs around 116.75. Again, US-Iranian conflict is front and center, and there is going to be a press conference at 2 p.m. New York time, Monday. Scott Bessent said he'll unveil some of the toughest sanctions against Iran, especially after Iranian Reza threatened to halt oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. So there's a lot of developments over the weekend. Keep your eyes focused on the oil prices and then again its impact on the US dollar. We take a look at the macro data this week. As mentioned, tough sanctions to be announced 2 p.m. New York against the Iranians this evening. Tuesday, we have the Reserve Bank of Australia's meeting minutes. Now, we know the Reserve Bank of Australia has been on hold recently. They delivered those 3 rate hikes at the start of 2026. They're on hold. Why is that? Because inflation has started to come off due to energy prices falling, and we've seen employment growth slow quite sharply. So we're not expecting anything new because the Governor, Michelle Bullock, did mention the Reserve Bank's thoughts in the RBA statement at the start of this month. However, keep your eyes on the Aussie US dollar and the ASX 200, which will be in play. Also on Tuesday, the German GDP expected to push a little bit higher, up to 0.9%. Annualized, we do have the more leading indicator of IFO business climate in Germany expect to improve. Therefore, the Euro stocks index and the euro dollar will be in play in and around that economic data release. Wednesday, we have Australian CPI data. It's a monthly CPI data. And annualized, it's forecast to drop from 3.8% to 3.2%. Quite a sharp drop in the forecast amongst analysts. If that is the case, if it were to drop further, say below 3%, it will certainly have an impact on the Australian dollar, which is quite elevated right now, and the ASX 200. Later on Wednesday, we have the US Core PCE Price Index expect to stay around about 3.3%. US GDP data is to be released around 1.5% expectations, but of course, if it comes out outside of expectations, it would likely impact US dollar and US short-term rates. On Wednesday, I put down here NVIDIA. NVIDIA's second quarter earnings are due to be released after market close, the 26th of August. So all eyes on that. It is the bellwether for global AI demand and spend. And imagine the NVIDIA stock will be pretty volatile and well traded on our platforms. And so will the NASDAQ 100. Skipping Thursday, no major data releases on Thursday, but Friday we do have Japanese core CPI expected to push higher to around 2%. So keep your eyes out on dollar yen. Dollar yen, may fall dramatically if CPI does push a lot higher. But where will the Bank of Japan be? Will there be intervention that actually accompanies this data release? On Friday, we have Canadian GDP coming out around 0.2%. And a couple of things I want to draw your attention to is on Thursday and Friday, Jackson Hole Symposium. Now, this is Kevin Walsh's first Jackson Hole Symposium, and there'll be all eyes on the Fed's monetary policy. And there'll be speeches from other FOMC members, and that'll be closely watched and likely impact the US dollar, US rates, and US equity indices. And down here in Australia, the reporting season continues for the majority of Australian companies, where investors and traders will closely watch results, outlooks, and dividends to be released. And once those dividends are released, then a lot of these companies will go ex-dividend towards the end of August and the first couple of weeks of September. So that is the analysis for this week and the week ahead. Good luck with your trading, and I'll see you in the next video.